You talked about the India-Pakistan question a moment ago, the war that happened back in May. And again, in the context of President Trump claiming repeatedly that he was the one who brought about the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And, as you would imagine, there is a lot of anguish here in India, particularly within the supporters of the ruling party, that why should a third party, however powerful that third party might be, why should a third party get involved and mediate the ceasefire, as President Trump has been claiming? And B, there is also a degree of anguish about, India could have gone much further. This is the furthest that they've gone since the 1971 war in the last 50 plus years. Clearly, India had the advantage militarily, and had it not been President Trump's intervention, it could have gone further, somewhere like what Israel has done with Iran, and sort of changed this pattern which Pakistan has been using for the last 30, 40 years of using these terror proxies to hit out against India and to kill innocent civilians in India.
It is a very interesting counterexample to it. Because yes, I mean, I've heard and read that a lot in recent weeks, and not least as more has come out about the nature and the origin of the terrorists who attacked in India. It's a very similar playbook, which elements in Pakistan, as with elements in Iran, have been playing, which is that you use terrorism, you use proxies. You use deniable and yet obvious proxies, so that there's always a gray area that you can try to exploit in the international community. So you can both, for instance, claim some kind of, let's say, glory at home for doing this and deny it internationally. To that extent, it's a very similar playbook. And yes, that question of have we been stopped is one of the most important ones. To my mind, whenever terrorist proxies are used by a rogue regime to carry out attacks, one of the noticeable things is the way in which in many contexts around the world, in India, Pakistan, Israel and Iran, the international community has this tendency to sort of say, we want you to go for a ceasefire now. And that's because the international community always calls for a return to the status quo ante, a return to the situation before the attacks. But a country that's been attacked doesn't necessarily have the luxury of simply returning to the period before the attacks. Certainly not if it wants to prevent more attacks. I'm very sympathetic to those voices inside India who think actually that the almost imposition, not really an imposition, but the urge towards ceasefire merely sets up the conditions for the same thing happening again. That's something that Israel has suffered through for decades. And that's why I mentioned that one of the ways in which we might, or historians might, end up looking at this war is as the war of 1979 to whatever date you want to put on it, which is the moment that the Ayatollah Khomeini seized power in Iran and decided to turn an extraordinary civilization, the Persian people, into a people who were subjugated by the most extreme form of Shiite Islam, and to subjugate first of all the people of Iran and then people across the region, then to wage war on their neighbors. Were this not to have happened many decades ago, the situation in the Middle East would be very different, as the situation of India, Pakistan would be different if Pakistan wasn't what it is.
So which brings me to the central theme of your book, which is on democracies and death cults, Israel and the future of civilization. There are some things that democracies around the world have faced with these terror attacks, whether it's Israel in the October 7th attacks, the United States faced that in 9/11. India's been a victim of terrorism that's been sponsored and brought on by Pakistan for a number of decades now, most recently the one that happened in Kashmir. How do democracies respond to this? What is a democratic response to a bunch of fanatics who have been ideologically brainwashed that it's okay to go out there and kill innocent people in the name of some twisted ideology, and they're willing to die for this? What is the rational democratic playbook to respond to this?
It's an extraordinarily deep challenge. It's one I've thought about for many decades as I've seen these death cult ideologies try to advance in country after country, and particularly in democracy after democracy. There's a phrase that the jihadists have used for many years, and it's similar to previous death cult ideologies in history. But it boils down to this boast: we love death more than you love life. And I think many people in the democracies of the world, like us, find it hard to imagine that anyone could mean this. It seems almost impossible. And yet, if you look at the actions of jihadist terrorists, whether it's in Mumbai or as you mentioned, in New York or anywhere else, in Paris, this is a fervent belief that certain people have, and they believe not just in taking life, but in glorifying in death in the name of their warped ideology. And it is a great challenge to democracies to know how to respond to this, because, of course, we have to respond to it. There's no doubt about that in most people's minds. And yet, at the same time, as I mentioned before, that people always call for de-escalation or for effectively not dealing with the problem at its root, not taking the trail right to the root of the problem, to the backers, to the people and the countries that push out the radical ideology, and much more. We are constantly, countries that are attacked by such groups, we're constantly told that even to react to them, for instance, would simply cause more of them, which is not true. Most of these groups are eminently capable of being destroyed, as with the example of Hezbollah recently. But all the democracies of the world will forever be called upon to be restrained and much more. And there's both good reason for that and also a very cynical window that can emerge. There's good reason to say, of course, we will never behave like the terrorists behave. We will never deliberately target innocent civilians or anything like that, because, I mean, after all, why would you if you were trying to destroy a terrorist group? Of course, you're trying to go for the terrorists themselves, for their backers and much more. But into that window of international concern that always erupts is always the opportunity for us to be urged not to do the job of actually responding to the terrorists. And I believe that in recent decades, all countries that have been attacked by this type of death cult ideology have had a very similar challenge. And Israel believed it was navigating the challenge relatively well until the 7th of October, when Yahya Sinwar of Hamas waged his war and sent his thousands of terrorists across the Gaza border into Israel in a genuine attempt to destroy the state of Israel. The post-October 7th war, which I've been covering and describe in the book close up from inside Gaza, inside Lebanon, inside Israel and elsewhere, is one of the most interesting and important consequential wars of modern times, because it shows both what terrorist groups, if they get control of significant territory, as Hamas did with Gaza, can achieve, and that they do actually do what they promise they will do. When they say that they want to annihilate their neighbors, they really do mean it, and they give it their best go. But on the flip side of that, as I describe On Democracies and Death Cults, such atrocities also present the challenge and an ability to respond by countries, in this case by Israel in particular, how to respond to this fanatical extremist ideology and to actually take the best opportunity to take this ideology and its backers out and move to a more peaceable future.